家好，我叫尹安妮 ，cause Silver，这是我的朋友Megan，她是中国人，但是我觉得她听不懂我说的话，所以呢，大家可以给我电视节目的建议。
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this with me. Oh my god, wow. No, it's actually been so long.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen you, oh my god.
Okay, I feel like recently I just forgot an outside world existed, and I don't know, I've just kind of been in my own head for like 2 months. But yeah, how are you doing?
I have to relate to what you said. I, took the big risk of flying back out here. Other than that, I've mostly been at home. I've been taking classes virtually and generally doing most things from home or from my apartment.
Yeah, I think that's everyone right now. So have you not really been on campus much? Do you usually just stay in your apartment?
Yeah, I spend most of my time in my apartment. I've been on campus a couple of times for like kind of COVID testing and just very general things. But it's a beautiful campus whenever I get the chance to go onto it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully soon you'll be on campus a lot, with the vaccine. Hopefully that's successful. Okay, Anita, can you introduce yourself please to the audience?
Hi audience, I'm Anita. Megan picked me up as a friend back in college, which ended in 2020, which is literally last year. I went to UC Berkeley with you, and now I am at Duke in North Carolina, cooking food and going on jogs and playing Dungeons and Dragons, and incidentally also studying for my PhD.
Very nice.
I'm really trying to stop myself from twisting back and forth a lot. Hi.
Oh wait, I'm twisting back and forth. I always twist back and forth. That's the thing about twisty chairs. I'm always twisting. Wait, do you remember the first time that we met? I met you outside of Bioengineering 103, and Kirthi, so another friend of ours, introduced us. And I remember you went up to me and you're like, "Hi, my name is Anita. I'm studying bioengineering and I'm super into synthetic biology. Are you also?"
Sounds like something I would say.
Yeah, it was great. I was like, at the time, I was like, oh my god, I don't even know what synthetic biology is. Like, I thought you had everything put together because we were sophomores at the time, first semester, and I still had no idea what was going on at Berkeley. And you're like, you knew exactly what you wanted to study, and I had no idea what I was doing.
Dude, I've still evolved a lot. I literally just from the freshman seminar just thought that the synthetic biology lectures were like super cool. I mean, like making blue gene dye with living cells. I thought it was really cool, and then they were doing like spider threads and all kinds of fun sci-fi stuff, and I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. And then I took organic chemistry, and then I learned that like chemistry and biochemistry is like a fundamental part of synthetic biology, and then I was like, I'm gonna go more on the like modeling and like computational, and like I like making models of things with math, and I don't like chemistry. That's what you really need to know.
Oh, so you don't like chemistry?
Well, if I can get around it, I wouldn't necessarily choose it.
Okay, that makes sense. I feel like a lot of people are like that. So I was just wondering, did you know you wanted to study bioengineering in high school? So like, how did you decide to major in bioengineering for your undergrad?
Well, the story I always tell, or not always, but the story, the way I kind of remember it in my head at least, is that junior year, I just went on a bunch of college tours because I was an over-enthusiastic high schooler. And a lot of the college tours, they have a general tour and they also have an engineering tour. And I already knew that I was kind of interested in the sciences. I just signed up to take the engineering tour as well. And the tour guide was like, yeah, so basically engineers do all the things that people in the respective majors do, but they just do it cooler. What shall we do with the drunken sailor? And are basically more badass. And so I was like, oh, that's so cool. So they were like mechanical engineers were physicists who do things in a cooler way, and bioengineers are biologists who do extra cool technical things. And that's not true at all. Kudos to all the chemist majors and bio majors and math majors and pure science and majors that aren't engineers. That's super legit, and I no longer think that what that tour guide said was necessarily true, but that kind of got me thinking I want to be an engineer.
Yeah, to be honest, when I chose bioengineering for my major, I didn't really think about it too much, and I feel like as a major you definitely should. But I was really into biology, right, in high school. And when I was choosing bioengineering, I just thought it sounded cooler than just biology. To be honest, as bioengineers, you don't really need to know that much biology. You just need to use biology to build the story of your problem, and then you use math to solve whatever that problem is.
Yeah, I confuse my non-STEM friends because they're like, so you study biology? And I'm like, yes. And then they're like, so do you know stuff about like, I don't know, human physiology or like just general biology knowledge? And like, spoiler alert, I have very poor like general biology knowledge. So it's like, what are you studying? It's like, well, I build math models of gene circuits, which is where you engineer a cell to like have one string of DNA encode a thing that depends on another thing, and you make a logic circuit out of it. And it's just like, so it's like so it's a math problem.
So at Berkeley, there's 4 concentrations, right? And off the top of my head, I can't even remember what they all are, but I know one of them is synthetic biology.
Yeah, I was pretty solidly in the syn bio, comp bio. It's better to be all over the place early and then figure out what you don't like than zoom in too early and realize you zoomed in on something you don't like, because then if you're trying to apply for graduate schools or jobs and you say, you know, hey, I know I took all my classes in topic X, but I actually hate topic X, will you please hire me for topic Y? Then I feel like it's even harder. So
yeah, no, I think that's like a perfect way of putting it. I think your beginning of undergrad, so like your first 2 years, you should just take a bunch of different classes, because you're bound to hate 50% of it, but then also realize you love 50%. And then for the rest of your undergrad, you should just pursue whatever that 50% happens to be. Okay, so I know you did research starting early, so freshman year, and I think throughout your entire 4 years, you were in the same lab. Is that correct?
That's pretty much accurate. I started in an entomology lab studying beetles at the beginning of my freshman year. I did that freshman through sophomore year, did summer research with them that year. And then the next summer, I did an internship with a microbiome company in SF. And then spring semester that year of junior year, that was my study abroad semester where I was doing research abroad. And then after that, I came back and did another summer internship, this time in San Jose, looking at Western blot device and just running a bunch of experiments with different buffers that my boss thought we should try. And then the spring of my senior year up through the summer of after my senior year, I was at LBL with a lab that looks at microbial communities and doing some research that I thought was really cool. And now I'm in graduate school. And the ironic thing is everyone looked at me like, you know, I was such a, you know, overachiever for doing research my freshman year, but like to tell my little secret, I started research early because I was nervous. I was afraid about doing research. I was afraid I'd be really bad at it and I'd need like extra time to prepare. So I like jumped onto it like extra early so I'd have like kind of be ready ahead of time to kind of get used to it and prepare and, you know, have time to build my confidence, right?
Do you mind talking about your beetles research? Because I remember you talking about it when we were in undergrad, and I honestly never really learned what you did, but I was really curious about it. So yeah, can you talk about your beetle research experience?
Turns out that the whole tree of life seems a lot more cut and dry when you are thinking about mammals and thinking about kind of more famous species, and it turns out that we're still rewriting it when it comes to things like insects. And so I was just doing a bunch of PCR over the summer to try to reassess and figure out how the insects relate to each other phylogenetically. And I was also briefly working on the main project that the lab was working on related to bombardier beetles spray. Our research question was essentially, do carabid beetles have microbiomes? What do those microbiomes consist of? And can we change the microbiomes by feeding them different things?
Okay, now I know what you did with the beetles. Very cool.
Turns out you really don't need ethics permits when you're studying insects and everyone squishes them anyway.
Oh my god, I didn't even think about that. Like, I didn't even think about the ethical implications of doing research on insects. I always thought about on mice, but I guess insects, yeah, that's weird. That's crazy. Okay, so you did research in the beetles lab, which is really cool. And then I know you also studied abroad in China. Can you talk about that? Because I think that's super cool.
I actually studied the language, the Chinese Mandarin, since elementary school. And I think it's super neat to be able to go to a different country where you kind of know the language and it's not English. So I feel like especially if you can make the finances work out, I think that studying abroad is like super worth it. It's one of the most memorable things you'll do. And especially if you go to do a PhD after that, where the most traveling you're going to do is like conferences and stuff. You know, having spent a long time at like a very different, culturally different place is like one of the most memorable things and valuable things you can do in undergrad.
So you did research during your time there, right? I remember you worked in a lab. What was your research about?
We were using a particular method to quantify kind of how ribosomes were moving along and translating genes things in yeast. And I was working in a lab that was a quantitative biology lab, and half of the fun was just hearing what other people were doing, because it was a big lab and there were everything from models of how you smell things with your nose to models of how fruit flies sleep, you know, to diabetes, to yeast. So lab meetings were always interesting, doubly so because they were all in Mandarin, and so I understood about X% where X is less than 100.
That's major props. Oh my god, so you did research and in a foreign language. I wouldn't be able to do it.
I just want to like shout out to all the international students, because I wasn't doing great. I mean, I wrote my final report in English, right? And
no, that's so cool. Okay, so you mentioned you did an internship at Protein Simple also. So that's really cool. So did you do research there also? And if so, how would you compare doing research in industry versus in an academic setting?
the two internships I did were both, you know, at companies, and the first one was a startup. The first internship I did felt more similar to academia, but I feel like as an undergraduate intern, it's often harder to tell the differences that would be more obvious to you as you kind of got higher up. And because as an undergraduate, you're mostly just working with your mentor, and so I think the biggest cultural thing is just what's your mentor like. In my internship with Protein Simple, industry is going to be a bit better funded, right? Because they're, you know, they have the funding. So maybe me in an academic lab is like I might be using like, you know, a not as fancy, shiny pipette with all the bells and whistles, and maybe in industry I'll have a pipette with a few more bells and whistles on it, kind of thing.
You have the Tesla of pipettes.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like when you're working in industry, like the materials you have are often kind of a bit nicer. But in terms of like what you're actually doing, I think that the experience is similar. But I could definitely see, looking up to my mentors and how they were thinking and what they were doing, that it's a different kind of mindset, like kind of like working towards a product versus like in academia, it's kind of like what questions have been asked and what questions can we ask next. The internships and the first research opportunity were more formal applications for me, but the second two research things I did, both this research abroad and the research at Lawrence Berkeley Lab, were by kind of asking. So I asked a professor at Berkeley who had previously done a postdoc in China and asked them if they could connect me to any professors there, and then kind of sent an introductory email like, hi, you know, here's my resume, I've done all these lab things, you know, I'd really love to do research in your lab for a semester. I tend to get positive responses to that sort of email.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you kind of a broad question, and I'm not sure if you can like pinpoint an exact moment, but how did you know you wanted to get a PhD? Because I feel like a lot of undergrads, they've done research, right, throughout their undergrad, and then they become a senior, and there's this point where they're like, okay, I really like research, but I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know if I should get a job like other people, or if I should get a PhD, because it's obviously a huge time commitment, and you know, you will be doing research for the next 5 years. So how did you know that PhD was right for you?
By no means do I think that people who get PhDs are like the best people or the smartest people. I think we're just the most patient people. Like, I have lots of great friends like Megan who are like really smart and capable and are using their skills in super great ways by doing
by making YouTube videos with my degree.
Yay! But I mean, I feel like, you know, different people have different talents, and one of my talents is for being like very patient when it comes to research, if that makes sense. Like, I'm totally chill with spending hours in the lab, pop in some headphones, listen to some music, and, you know, let's do some research. I kind of knew that I was pretty comfortable with that. You know, I saw the people around me, and a lot of people, you know, were like, oh, this is so tedious and so frustrating, and I was like, for my personality, I just like that, you know? This is the advice I tell everyone who asks me for like advice for should you get a PhD, because I went into college kind of thinking that I might want to do a PhD, but like not really sure. And then I started doing this kind of in college, and that's what made me more sure that a PhD was what I actually wanted to do. And that is, look at the people in the positions you want to be in, right? And LinkedIn stalk them, Google them, ask them, how did they get where they are? right? And for me, the people who were doing what I thought would be really cool to do were the professors and the people in the companies I was working for who were kind of the senior scientists. And I was like, I want to be a senior scientist or professor or something like that. Generally speaking, the people who were in the positions that I was interested in, where they were kind of the lead scientists, leading teams, and sort of organizing projects and asking interesting questions and thinking about the data and kind of thinking about the big questions, as it were, had PhDs. And that was what it was. So I realized that I had to either get a PhD or go into more of the kind of business side of things, which doesn't personally interest me.
No, I like both of the points you brought up, because like, knowing you, I feel like you have the character to be a great PhD because you embrace the uncertainty. Like, you embrace that the question you ask may never have an answer, or it may take you a long time to lead to the answer. And the second point you brought up, where you look at people and you identify them that you want to become one day, I think is a really good idea, because I think you should have that mindset of identify whatever you want, and then you work backwards and then reverse engineer what steps can I take to reach that goal. And that's like a great strategy for literally anything.
Dude, whether it's a problem on an exam or your entire life's career, like, reverse engineering is like surprisingly effective.
Okay, so you are a PhD student at Duke now. So what led you to pick Duke to do your PhD at? Was there a reason why?
I talked to a different Berkeley professor. I came to him actually with a prepared list of kind of schools that seemed like they were doing some cool syn bio, comp bio, microbiome kind of, and he looked at my list and was like, well, actually these schools, I don't know, and oh, I can't believe you didn't think of this person at this school, and kind of spit a bunch of names at me, and it was really helpful. In terms of the PhD generally, there are differences between schools in terms of general levels of funding and prestige, and also general program requirements. Some require you to get a master's on the way to a PhD. Some are very flexible with the coursework requirements. Some have you rotate between labs. Some directly admit you to a lab like Duke did. I think I applied to like 8 schools maybe. And the PhD application is a pretty long application. I was only accepted at like 3, right? So, I mean, that's
solid.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's solid.
Good job, Anita. I didn't even know that. Yeah, congratulations. I didn't even know you got accepted to 3.
You didn't? Oh my god.
No, that's amazing.
Oh. So, pro tip for application process for PhDs, always reach out to the professors directly. Like, don't be like asking like the director of graduate studies, so like, what are you looking for in a graduate student? Like, even in the schools that don't have direct admission to labs, professors can still, I think in a lot of schools at least, professors can still prioritize students who they've already talked to and already kind of heard interest from. Like, for me, one of the schools I got into, I'm not so sure, I did try to reach out to professors. I didn't have like as much contact with the professors who I tried to reach out to, but I was accepted anyway. Don't worry too much about how any kind of pre-contact with professors goes, because you might not have any, and you could still get in.
So when you were picking your 8 schools, I think you said, so did you decide that you wanted to do synthetic biology as a PhD, and then from there, then you found the 8 schools?
So yes, but even more specific than that. Bioe is very broad, and different schools have different strengths in different areas, and the rule of thumb is you'd like to apply to a school with at least, say, 3 professors who you could definitely see yourself doing research with for 5 years. You have to be very interested in their research topic. And so you have to kind of think about what topics you're interested in. It doesn't have to be exactly your undergraduate concentration, but it's definitely important to start thinking about some keywords, kind of what you're generally interested in, both because you need to find professors who are doing that and who you could potentially work with, and because you actually have to write a research proposal. But yeah, the application, there's like various resume stuff, and then the main essays for pretty much all schools are going to be statement of kind of who you are, right? So where you've been and what you're about and who you are, basically. And then the other statement is going to be research, which is what questions fascinate you, what research have you done in the past, or what experiences have you had that make those questions interesting to you. And so you can't really write a compelling statement of what you're interested in researching if you have no idea what you want to research.
Yeah, that's perfect. So I know with COVID and everything, you don't have the full experience. You're kind of in your apartment all the time. But how would you say your experience as a Duke PhD has been so far?
My lab is both experimental and computational, and I made the decision to do more computational work and to be more cautious, to stay in my apartment. A lot of people in my cohort are already doing research. They've been super cautious. They're having everyone be social distance and with masks on, and Duke is also also interesting because they expect people to start research from the beginning, and a lot of schools kind of separate the coursework and the rotations from the then later kind of starting your research.
Are you allowed to talk about what you're researching? So your current computational project?
Oh, that's a great difference between industry and academia.
Yeah, okay, I was gonna...
Is that in industry, it's all under wraps, and in academia, it's not.
What are you working on, Anita? Don't get in trouble, though.
If you put bacteria in a petri dish under certain conditions and let them grow, specifically if they're kind of low on nutrients and specific strains and specific conditions and stuff, instead of just kind of growing in a circle and getting larger in a circle, they actually go outward and form these beautiful branching patterns. There are people in this world who are researching questions because they are fundamental questions about the nature of the universe, and there are people in this world who are like, I want to spend 5 years trying to model why this thing is pretty and if we can predict exactly how it looks pretty. And I'm going to learn all of the modeling and all of the things to understand and predict how the pretty things are going to look, and specifically the bacterial patterns. The long-term aim would be if we can understand the spatial organization of microbiomes and biofilms and microbial things, then maybe, just maybe, can do kind of engineering of those systems, right? And kind of spatio-temporal engineering would be kind of like the horizon idea. And specifically what I'm doing that is really cool is using a combination of mechanistic mathematical modeling and machine learning. So the mechanistic modeling is very detailed. It's a model of the truth. It's something you can interpret, but it can be slower to kind of make predictions that way. And machine learning is really hot, and it's not as interpretable as black box, as everyone knows. Having mechanistic models and machine learning work together, and so kind of the speed of one and the kind of interpretability of the other kind of coming together. Should I show everyone my stuffed yeast?
What the heck?
You know you're a useless dork.
Oh my god!
Stuffed yeast because science.
Unbelievable.
It's a stuffed yeast. It's a giant stuffed yeast.
That's what everybody needs right now in COVID, to be honest. A stuffed yeast.